Yes.
Got it.
So I've seen that you also like to paint,
Yes.
and you do really great painting too. Actually, I love them.
Thank you. I love
uh,
color.
I was speaking of colors and like paintings and painting. How as a painter that colors and gives layers to its canvas, how do you give colors to your performances or to your characters? Yeah, how do you give colors to them?
That's a great question, actually, because it all kind of, as you say, an art of arts. You paint, dance, act on stage, film, and voiceover, obviously. Um, and finding the layers. For me, whenever I am cast as a character, the first thing that I look for is how I can relate to them. Even the most awful character, like I play Pandora in ReZero, who is so bad, I look and see if there's anything that I can understand about that character. Because for me as a performer, and I can't speak for anybody else, it's really important that I can have that connection with them. So, first and foremost, that's what I look for. I try to find whether it's something, whether they're very vulnerable about something or something from their past, even maybe their actions. If there's anything that I can relate to, that I can put myself into that, position, that's number one. Also, they everybody else around them, because that's another layer that's very important. You have the character, and then you have the character's relationships with everybody. Even if you're doing a scene where you're just talking to one person, or it doesn't really seem like there's a relationship there, there is. You want to make the audience feel that you're actually talking to somebody, if that makes sense, so you don't want it to just be flat. So the second thing that I like to do is try to find out the relationships with the character. And then, yeah, and then from there, I like to just grow. And so as I'm recording the character, because we don't always know, sometimes we're lucky. Sometimes we're lucky and we do know the character's journey. So we can, from the very beginning, kind of like, you know, we already know who they are and where they're going to go. But a lot of times we're growing with the character. And so I think just when they find something new or discover something new, I find it as well. And I feel like that really brings the character to life because it's very genuine.
Speaking of like relations and stuff, because I guess that as a performer, it's also learn and see with different relations and like connections and, as you said, growing with the characters. But then what does it mean to be a performer to you and to grow alone with these characters? Does it has a specific meanings to you or colors?
Yes. Um, Being a performer to me, I mean, again, that's another question and answer where there's so much that I could say because there's just so much to it. Um, for me, it is a way to begin when I learn a new character and I'm growing with that character. Sometimes I can learn something about myself through them. And that's really important to me because it helps me grow as a person. I have always said, because again, I started out in dance and then I did theater, film, TV before I finally got into voiceover. Every type of art has helped me grow as a person. And that is because of all of these different characters that I have portrayed over the years. There's things about myself that I wouldn't have even realized if I didn't play certain characters. It kind of like has a light bulb that pops out. It's really neat. It's really neat to be able to grow with the characters like that. So, as a performer, I like to give myself to these characters and thus also sharing myself with the audience. I want the audience to just care about me as a performer, but a person as well. That's really important, especially when it's a character that you really relate to. For myself, I pour my whole heart and soul into it, and so when people are watching and listening, they're also getting to know me, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
So because like you have played and portrayed many characters like on stage, on screen, and on theater, do you have some kind of process or like mentality or even like the physicality before going or performing them? Because I suppose that before like dancing or like on screen or on stage, it's like different kinds of physicality or even with the voice.
To like prepare myself.
Yes.
And that sort of I on a panel not too long ago where we talked about this because sometimes again we're lucky that we do get to know the characters and we get a lot of information, but that's rare. So other times we have no idea what we're going to be recording. That's the difference between like voiceover and say doing like a play or something like that, where when you are rehearsing for a play you really get to know the character and discover the character, and you know everything before you ever even perform it, on stage for the first time. Whereas in voiceover, most of the time we have no idea. So we're literally just going into the booth and we get the script and we get the character and it's like, go. And so to prepare for that, for me, I just allow myself to be ready for anything. You have to be flexible and you have to be able to just go with the you if you psych yourself out or you prepare for something and you go into the booth and then it's something completely different, it can throw you off. So for me it's just, especially in voiceover, that's what I do. I kind of just give myself a talk like, okay, this could be anything. Sometimes, if it's a character that I'm coming back to play, I can expect, I already know like the voice, I already know, probably what's going to go on, but a lot of times you have no idea. So again, it's just like taking the time to step back, breathe, and just be ready for anything. You gotta be ready because there's so many times I've gone into a session and they've thrown so many things that I would never have expected at me. And if I wasn't grounded and I wasn't ready for it, it could have really thrown me off. So, in terms of voice, that's one just ready thing.
Then, like when you have the script for theater, or like even the idea of like a performance for the dance or the film, do you have some kind of any inspirations for which you draw your characters? Maybe your experience, or maybe someone else, or a song.
Yeah, inspirations. Oh, there's so much. You just mentioned song. I like to think music and use my characters. Or if I don't know my character, but I kind of am familiar with the project, I will play music that reminds me of that project to kind of put me in that headspace. Music is very important to me because, again, I'm a dancer and I've been dancing most of my life. So it helps, just with character creation, and it always inspires me. A big thing I love to listen to is like Final Fantasy soundtracks. That's a big one. Final Fantasy just gets me in the mood sometimes, and it helps me. Like, there's certain songs that I will listen to for certain characters, and yeah. And then also, I am a nerd. I am a geek. I love all of this stuff. So sometimes I'll get a character and they'll remind me of another character in media that I really love. For example, Divinity and when they started describing the character to me, it kind of ticked off that, oh, she reminds me of Melisandre from Game of Thrones, who I love. So I was able to pull, and it's not just like her outward appearance and how she's all mysterious, it's the fact that she's kind of hiding some things. And so I got a lot of inspiration from another character that I really loved, and I still made it my own, but I was like, oh yeah, Melisandre, I got this. So that's just an example right there. Yeah, so music, other characters, media that I love, even people I know, my own experiences can inspire a performance. Again, even if you are doing a scene and you may not relate to that scene exactly, like, that hasn't happened to you, for me, I think of something that has happened to me in my own life that could cause those feelings, help me to a little bit more.
Nice. So far in your whole career, for like from dancing, theater on screen, and now into booth too. What are your five best memo? I love the number five. Your five,
Five is a good number.
your five memorable moments, and
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Just because I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunities that I have had in my life. It hasn't always been easy. I've had to really, really work for them. I came from a small town where there wasn't really a lot of art available, and my family didn't have a lot of money, so I had to really push for things. And so I'm very lucky that I accomplished. And danced when I was 16 years old. I was able to go to Scotland and dance at the Edinburgh the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Sorry. So the Fringe Festival. And that meant so much to me because they only selected a certain amount of girls or dancers every summer to go and dance for this like children's ballet program. And one of the years I got selected, and to be able to dance in Scotland, because I'm Scottish and Irish and I've always wanted to go, I never thought at 16 years old that I would get to go to another country and perform. That was a huge deal to me. And I actually got my photo dancing on stage in their paper. And so like my face was all over their paper for like a couple of days, and it was so surreal and weird. And so that will always be such a special memory to me. Um, for and again, there's so many of them. I had the opportunity to work for NBC on their show, The Playboy Club, which was so amazing. It was magical in a lot of ways because there was just so much that happened for me. And actually, being cast in The Playboy Club opened a lot of doors. And really, that's what made me go, I want to do this seriously and professionally. I want to move to Los Angeles. I want to really pursue a serious career as an actor, because when I was on that set with all of these well-established actors and everything, and getting to see how, the industry works, because at that point I was doing a lot of lower budget films and indie films, which I loved and adored, but I didn't know what it was like to be on like a set like that big. And it was so inspirational. And I the opportunity to dance with like Jenna Dewan. We were dance partners, and getting to work with Fatima Robinson, who was the choreographer for Backstreet Boys, and Britney Spears and stuff like that, and Kenny Ortega, who directed High School Musical. Like, that was huge. So that, and getting to do, I also made a film called Rose White. With Breakwall Pictures, and that was a film that I had created and was able to produce with this company, and that meant a lot to me because this film, Rose White, was based off of events that happened to me, and it was kind of a way for me to get past certain traumas that happened in my life. So that was huge, that I was able to actually create this story, and we were able to make it and bring it to life. The last few things I will talk about, so that was 3, right? Yeah, that was 3. Getting to dance with Labyrinth of Jareth, been for because I do all sorts of things, but dance is always like that's where I started as a performer. I'm a dancer since I was 7 years old. So I moved out to Los Angeles, and I got involved with something that I had known since I was a teenager on LiveJournal, which is Labyrinth of Jareth. It's a huge masquerade ball. And I dance for them now. I dance and create characters, and we do it every year, and it's like, it just means a lot to me because it's just fantastical and magical, and I get to create these characters, and it's like, it's very immersive, and it's very like, me as an artist, I love that, because as much as I love voiceover and I love film and TV, being able to like create characters in a moment and be able to interact with like, the patrons and the audience like in real time is so cool. So I love that. And then last, of course, I have to throw over there. Like, and this one, a huge thing for me and big highlight of my life has been to be an Evangelion because I have been a huge Evangelion fan since I was small. And I'm talking about when it was like on VHS. Like I'm old. I'm older. And so I never thought, even when I got into voiceover, that I would ever get to be in something like Evangelion. Ever. It was like one of the last things that I would have ever thought I would be in. So the fact that I was able to get to be in Evangelion and to be a pilot of all things has just simply blown my mind. And I still to this day will get emotional when I think about it, that like, anime has meant so much to me. Animation, video games, all of it has meant so much to me. And it helped me as a teenager, and it helped me as, you know, went and and to get to be a part of that and something that has meant so much to me. It's amazing. I feel very, very fortunate and very lucky to have that.
That's great.
And that was 5. I have a lot more, but I was like trying to pick something from each thing that I do. So
That's cool. It seems like, as we see now, like you have like really a rich career and have done really amazing things.
well, I mean, is it like Angelina Jolie's career? No, it's not even remotely like that. But for me as an artist, I feel I'm happy with what I've accomplished, and I'm happy with what I've gotten to do because it's been so many different things, and I just feel very lucky.
That's the most important thing, that you feel happy with what you're doing. um,
There's always times where I know that everybody feels like this. You feel like maybe you're not accomplishing anything, or like you're not where you would like to be, or you're not successful. And success, you define your own success, and I have to remind myself that when I find myself comparing my career to theirs, that hey, no, I'm doing well. I'm doing well for what I have set out to do. And I think we all need to kind of remember that. You make your own success, you define it. Nobody else. Yeah.
yeah. During your career, what are the some of the biggest challenges that you have faced? Because you have been part of like many things, and but then what are some of, or like one of the challenge, and how did you maybe overcome it, if it's possible?
Oh, yeah, there's so many challenges as a performer and an actor and an artist. And I could zero in on some very specific things, but I have to say, quite honestly, the biggest challenge that I've ever had to face is, again, being kind to myself and putting myself in healthy spaces, meaning, it's very easy again to sit there and compare myself with other performers, other dancers, other actors, and when that happens, it will set myself, I can't speak for anybody else, but I know, people probably relate, it will set me on a spiral of just like, oh, I'm not good enough. Want to any this has happened. I've had periods where I just get so discouraged and I'll just say, I don't want to try anymore because what's the point? I'm working so hard, but I'm not doing this and this and this. And what I have learned after all of these years of doing that again, I've had to figure out ways to keep myself safe and keep myself in a good space and know that I'm doing good for me and not to compare for anybody else, to anybody else. Especially with the way social media is. Social media is kind of like, you hear this all the time. It's a highlight reel. So people will post and talk about their most exciting things, their biggest accomplishments. And people don't necessarily talk about their struggles and the things that they've had to go through. And so I remind myself that we're all going through things. And because it means easy for that person. And, you don't know what is waiting for you. So that has been a big thing for me over several years. Since the time I was dancing, doing theater, doing film, TV, and now in voiceover, is just being kind to myself and being patient with myself and not allowing myself to get into these deep, dark periods where I don't want to create anymore. Because if I'm not creating and I'm not, doing what I love, that's not good. So, yeah, that's always has been the biggest challenge for me as a performer. And again, I've kind of figured out ways to get over it and to be safe and be kind to myself, but sometimes you can slip back into it. But it's just as long as you're it's been helpful to me.
Zoe in Miraculous Ladybug, which is an awesome character, the bee.
Yeah, she's so cute.
Was there like any pressure when you got cast as this character?
So,
Oh,
yeah. Zoe has been an interesting character. So my background with Miraculous is I actually had been a fan for a while before I ever got involved in the show because I met the actress who plays Chloe, who is Zoe's sister, on a web series that we were recording together. Isn't that funny? We were doing like a live action thing together, and she had just got cast as Chloe, and she was telling me, and this is before I ever did voiceover, by the way, when I like about me about this show she just got cast in, and she loved it so much, and so I checked it out, and then I was like, I love this show. This is great. And then I met Ezra, and Ezra brought me in to voice some background characters, and then gave me the role of Kalki, who's one of the Kwamis. Since I had gotten involved in Ladybug, I had really, really, really hoped and wanted to be one of the hero characters. There's all the different Kwamis and the different miraculous holders, and I was really hoping that I would get to be one. Okay? It was like one of my goals that I was like, one of these days, there's going to be a character. I auditioned for a couple of different ones because since I had gotten involved with Miraculous, they had a few auditions for characters for like the movies and stuff like that, and some other characters who popped up, and I didn't book any of them. And it was kind of like, oh, maybe I won't get to be a character, it's like, I'm happy with them. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Okay. And then Zoe popped up, and Ezra, the director, was like, we've all decided that you're gonna play Zoe. She's perfect for you. And at that point, I didn't really know anything, and we didn't know anything except for that she was Chloe's sister. When I heard that, and I heard that she was Chloe's sister and that she was going to be the new Be Miraculous holder, I knew that there was going to be some upset fans because Chloe has her own fan base and people who really love her with the Be Miraculous. She's Queen Bee. She's amazing. She's a great character. So here comes Zoe. And I have to say, while there's some fans who are not happy with the character because she is the new Be Miraculous and got nice comments here and there because people just don't, and it's understandable. People are so passionate, We're passionate about what we love, and so I understand people just love Chloe so much that it's hard for them to see a new character with, the Be Miraculous. I've had people who've been really, really supportive and love Zoe. So that has been a challenge playing this character that has, was kind of a journey for me to finally get and to be cast as. To be so excited I'm playing this character, and then the reaction being like, she's not Queen Bee, and it's like, yes, you are right. She's not Queen Bee. She's Vesperia. But I understand. I'm not, upset or anything over it. I totally get it. But that's been a little bit of a challenge. It was like, oh, okay, guys, I'm really sorry. I just voice her and I love her, and I hope, everybody like gives her a chance as the show continues and will open their hearts to her, and hopefully we'll see a growth in her relationship with Chloe, her sister, and we'll see what happens.
Looking forward to see this.
Yeah.
You said that you liked like a bit earlier that you do like Final Fantasy soundtrack.
Yes.
Do you like any others like video games? Oh, and yeah, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce. Like any other video games that you like to play, or like some of your favorites, and maybe do you have like an aspiration to be like maybe one of the voice in one of them maybe one day?
Mentioned that anime and video games and stuff, means a lot to me because as a teenager, it really helped me grow. And when I say that, it's because I'm open about this. My home life when I was a child and especially as a teenager was not a positive one. Unfortunately, I grew up in a rather, you hear that word toxic environment. And what I had to help me and to help me, stay true to myself and discover myself was anime and especially video games. I was playing a lot of JRPGs, and that's my favorite. JRPGs, hands down. As we talked about Final Fantasy, I love them all. I love them all. Final Fantasy 9, 6, 7, 10. I love them all. But my all-time favorite video is who on I talk about it all the time. I love Chrono Cross. I have played it more than any other game, and there is a character in Chrono Cross that I would love to voice. Harley is my favorite, but I think I would like to voice Lena, who is, Serge's friend, and she has the red hair. I'm like, oh, I already got that, so doing her voice. I just relate to her character a lot. She's really funny. Chrono Cross is great. Chrono Trigger is great. I really, 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 really love the Lunar games. Lunar Silver Star Story and Lunar 2 Eternal Blue. If you've never played them, I highly recommend them. Great characters. The voice cast is already fantastic. They already have a voice cast, but if they were ever to redo it or anything like that, there's a couple of characters I think I would love to voice because they're fun. Favorite game of mine. And to this day, I mean, like, people ask me what games I play. I really just play the same games over and over. They're all JRPGs. That's what I love. I play a little bit of Animal Crossing. It's fun, but yeah, those are my games. And when I go back to play them, it feels safe. It feels nice.
You feel like happy and
Yeah,
overflowing and
yes. It's because it's a comfort thing. Just like how people have their comfort shows and movies that they watch over and over and over again. I'm like that with video games. If I'm feeling down, I can put in like even like Kingdom Hearts or something like that, and it just makes me feel good because I love these characters. I love the worlds, and there's not going to be any like surprises. I already know what's going to happen, but it's still so much fun. Yeah, hopefully one of these days, I'll get to do something maybe Chrono Cross related or Final Fantasy related. That's my goal, one of my dreams. We'll see.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Speaking of like comfort series, like loving the characters, I especially I loved the character you have play in Evangelion, Marie.
Yes.
Marie, yeah, she's amazing.
I agree.
I wanted to know too. Was there like any pressure when you were like playing Marie?
It's always a complicated question, and why it's complicated is yes and no, because I okay. I actually didn't know what was going on. And I guessed, so they didn't tell us the project, they didn't tell us the character. I was able to figure it out from like the audition sides and just knowing like there was this movie that was coming out, and just being a fan, I personally was able to figure it out. But I wasn't 100% sure, if that makes sense. I wasn't sure. I was like, I think it's this character and I think it's for this thing, but I don't know. And when I was cast, I still didn't know. I didn't know for sure. So when I found out for sure that this is what it was, that it was Evangelion, and that it was the 4th film, because we did the 4th film first. And I didn't know we were doing the other. I did not know that we were doing all of the movies. I had no idea. I didn't even know that, like, when we were recording the film of it, like, I did start to feel a sense of pressure because I was very familiar with what happened to and with the redub of the series that went on to Netflix. And I was very aware of the fan response to a redub, and seeing, and I had friends that were involved. And as somebody who loves both the ADV version and the Netflix version and have friends in both, it was hard to see and experience just the outlash, that happened. So I did, once I found out for sure that this is what we were doing, I did have some pressure on me because I was like, oh no. Like I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to deal with all of that, if that's going to happen, the backlash and the go from last another. I just want to say that I don't think I would never want to invalidate anybody's feelings. People are certainly welcome to feel the way they feel, but just as an actor, knowing that we may be experiencing that, it was a little scary. Okay? But at the same time, for me, and the director Joe Freya can vouch for this, I connected with Mari instantly. I didn't have any, like, as soon as I met her and started voicing her, it was very easy. It's very easy to slide into her and get to know her. And I was basically, in a lot of ways, kind of playing myself. So it was easy. And because of that, I didn't feel pressure to be a certain way. I didn't feel like I need to do anything different than what I was doing for myself. And the director was very happy, and everybody was very happy, and it was nice. It was nice to get to play a character like that, opposed to somebody like Pandora, who in ReZero was difficult for me to play because she does all these terrible things, and like I don't have the same presence or personality as her. That was a challenge, and so I had pressure, but with Mari it was just like, oh, playing myself. And because this, I love Asuka so much. Asuka had always been my favorite character. I've loved her forever and ever and ever. And it was so nice to get to play Mari, who has like this kind of special connection with Asuka. And it was just easy for me because I was like, I know exactly who this character is. And it was, yeah, I loved it. So I hope that answers your question, that it was like there was some pressure there because I know how passionate I am. Yeah, and I know how passionate fans are. And so as an actor, you want to do the best you can and you want people to like it. But at the end of the day, I was very happy with what I did, and I felt and still feel such a connection to Mari. And the other voice actresses that have played her have been amazing. I actually didn't know. I didn't go back and watch any of the other performances. Even Maya Sakamoto's, or Trina Nishimura, who's amazing. I didn't watch their performances until I was done, because for me it was very important. And for us, I think as a production, we wanted to make it our own. Really cool to see the different variations of the character, and wrong. So cool to see that. And yeah, at the end of the day, I'm proud of what I did, and that helped, take some of the pressure off of just like, may not be for everybody, but I had so much fun, and I still feel like Mari all the time. I'm like, if I was an Ava pilot in those situations, that would probably be what I would, I would do what she's doing. Yeah. It's so true. Or anybody could feel what I put into her, because I did put like my full self into Mari and just enjoyed it. And we had so much fun when we were recording too. Like we had a blast just recording it. And everybody involved just loved what we were doing, just as a whole. It's special. I think even, as I go forward as a voice actor, no matter what else I do in my career, I I think Evangelion and being Mari, a version of Mari, I should say, will always be one of the most special things that has ever happened to me. Like, just period. I love her, if you can't tell. I'm actually wearing her right now. She's right here. Hi, Mari. There she is.
So cute.
Yes, she stays with me.
Yeah. But when we were like watching the movie, we really feel like, as you said, the different variations and how everyone made their own
Yes.
version of it, which is great.
Yeah, I personally love that. I love that with any, because you're seeing a lot of shows get redubbed now, or you see people play, like, for example, Batman. There's so many variants of Batman. And what's so cool is that everybody does something different. And I think as a performer, that's really cool. I know I wouldn't want to go in and try to do a copy of what somebody else did, personally, because you want to make, every time you're cast as something, you want to make it your own. And you want to bring something different. You want to give people something different. And, if they like it, great. If they don't like it, that's okay too. Because, it doesn't matter. It's whether it's from you or somebody else, or, you have options. It's great.
Speaking again of Mary, she's known for like her joyful attitude and stuff,
Yeah.
and also for her singing.
Yes.
What was your experience like singing as her and like recording this?
So, again, when I say that
Yeah.
I very much relate to Mari, I randomly I sing all the time. I make up songs all the time. Every day I make up songs and I'm singing constantly. I'm always singing. It's even like, no matter what the situation is, I make up songs and I sing. I sing to myself in the car. I sing in the shower. I'm always singing. So the fact that this pilot, in these very intense and serious situations, is singing happy things, I was like, I relate to that. That again would probably be me, you know. And yeah, so it was fun. Some of the songs I had preparation, meaning like they sent me, the melody and the lyrics like a day before, so I was able to prepare for it, which is great. One of the songs I didn't have any preparation, and I learned it in the booth at this, in real time. So I had to just listen, and we just did it, and that was fun because it was, again, how I was saying earlier about like you just never know what to expect. That's a perfect example. I knew that Mari sings because I had already recorded, some of her songs, but oh, here I go. I have to sing this song now. I don't know the yes, did it, So yeah, it was fun. It was so much fun. And somebody just asked me on Twitter. They were like, "Hey, did you record the full song for, the second film?" And we did not. We only recorded what was needed for the film, but maybe I will record the full version of that song and release it just for fun.
A cover album. That would be nice.
Yeah, it would be fun. Maybe I'll make a Mari album.
Oh yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that since you were a fan of Evangelion, you really loved Asuka. Asuka, yes, and that you felt the special connection that
Yes.
Mari has. There's also, I've seen somewhere that there's also some kind of shipping between her and Asuka. What do you think about this?
As a queer performer myself, I love to see that in media, and I like to kind of see clues. And when I say this, I am not saying officially, okay? This is just my opinion. And I always want to say that because I know, people, when it comes to ships and stuff, it can get pretty heated. My opinion, and when I was playing Mari, it was very important to me to kind of not just there's a lot of layers to their relationship. I also, like one of the layers was she kind of has like this mom friend or like big sister mentality towards Asuka. That was important to me to put through. But also because I I could feel and I could see their connection, possible romantic connection. It was important to me to put in there, and very I you know what I mean, like it was just like I was playing Mari, and yeah, Mari's attracted to Asuka. Why not? Like it was just natural. um I think Mari, she's such an enigma, and we don't really know anything about her, but I do, the way that I see her, she's so worldly. She's so worldly, and she's so wise in a lot of ways, that I think that it just makes sense that she would be attracted to all sorts of people, and Asuka's one of them. Um, and again, but I also like her with Shinji. There's that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
At the end too. The ending did make me cry. And that can be up for interpretation. So yeah, I'm kind of like, I ship her with both. And like, yeah, I can just say for myself again, like I as an actor and performer, if people, and I did have people, and I still have people on like Twitter and social media reach out to me and say, hey, like, did you mean to make Mari gay? And I'm like, well, yes. Like if that, it's actually been nice to have people like pick up on that. To actually pick up on the way that lines were delivered, and the way that it was towards her, that there was a little bit of that. So yay, I'm glad that people got it.
You are a queer performer.
Yep.
How do you think is like important the representation of LGBTQIA plus and so on, like in performance, maybe in like on stage and screen and stuff, maybe even in dance?
Yeah, it's so important. I've been playing queer characters for a long, long time. Since, I was, when I moved from Texas to Chicago, I had always, I've had this discussion actually with some people. Even when it wasn't as open, again, I kind of aging myself. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been a performer for a long time. I can remember even like 15 years ago, people still being kind of hesitant about queer characters, in film and stuff like that, and playing them. And I've been playing them for a long time. I was always the actor who was like, I want to play that character because it was important. I felt like, it was part of who I was, and I didn't, and what I have to say though, I was very privileged in a lot of ways, because for me, I have never faced or had it held against me. And I don't know, I think some of that is just being very, you hear the words passing, like it was just like, oh, whatever. It was easier for me, I think, and I have to acknowledge that. Because I didn't face any consequences or anything, if that makes sense. But I've been playing queer characters forever. When I got into voiceover, it was just another thing where it was just like, and it's so important. I know how I felt as a teenager, and shipping, like seeing characters like two girl characters interact and feeling and just wanting feelings, and it's like you want to see it in media because it validates it. And we had Sailor Moon, so we had Sailor Neptune and Uranus, but at that time they were still censoring it, and they were cousins, and it was just like, I think about it, and I think about how like awesome it would have been if it wasn't like, I mean, like, those of us who knew, we were like, whatever, they can try to censor it all they want, but we knew. We'd go online and be shipping, Eris and Tifa and all of this stuff, but it's so important. I still think a long way to go, because you have things like the Owl House that I'm watching now, and it's fantastic. And to see this like couple that's so openly queer is so, and it's just refreshing, because they're just queer. There's no like thing to it. There's no like weird storyline attached to it because it shouldn't be. That's important. It's important for young people and even adults who are still figuring themselves out to see it positively and genuinely portrayed in media. It's so important. So every time like I have an opportunity to do that and to kind of put myself into a character and I have the freedom, I always like to put that into them because, you know, it's like that's who I am and why not? Why not? Who says like one of my favorite characters is Roddy from Death End Request 2 and I remember when they told me that she was in love with Mai, that she really loves her, like genuinely, like it's a romantic thing. I was so happy. I was like, oh yes, like I get to have like a queer character, and it's like so genuine and sweet, and it was just so much fun to do. So yeah, yeah. I think it's so important, and again, it's getting better, but it could get even better, and we just have to normalizing it and putting it out there naturally. Yeah.
Yeah.
People, they need to see themselves in media and know that there's no shame in who they are because it's just natural. And yeah, it's it's so silly. It's just like gay people exist. We exist everywhere. So yeah, put us in. Put me in.
Is there like a particular show that has inspired you in a particular way and maybe helped you, or not helped you, but like shaped the one? Oh, do you want to know?
Has there been like something that specifically has shaped me?
Yes.
Who I am? I mean, there's a bunch. I would have to say though, the one that probably is the biggest and means the most to me would be The Last Unicorn, which, you know, is the animated film and book by Peter S. Beagle, and the film was done by Rankin Bass. And that book, and just The Last Unicorn in general, has existed since I was born, since I was a child. It was something that I have been very much in love with since I can remember. And it has never gone away. It has been something that I have kept with me throughout all these years, and the characters mean so much to me. It's very fascinating because as a kid, as a little girl, I always wanted to be like Amalthea, you know? She's so beautiful and she's so ethereal, and oh, I love the unicorn. I wanted to be the unicorn, and I would like pretend that I was the unicorn and pretend I was Amalthea, and that's what I aspired to be. I wanted to be, you know, so just like perfect and beautiful and mysterious and magical. But now as I've grown older, like Gru, who when I was a child I didn't really understand her as much, and as I've gotten older I'm like I sob every time, you know, she has her scenes with Amalthea. That piece of media, you know, just in general means so much to me, and it's again something that has stayed with me since I was so small, and even now as an adult I have so much love for it, and I will go back and watch it, and it inspires me. It makes me, you know, the animation, for example, I'm just like, oh, these performances are so good, and I just love animation so much, and I love this so much. I want to do that now, you know, like I'm ready to get back in the booth and record and make something as timeless and special as The Last Unicorn. So that project, definitely. And then also Lord of the Rings. I've always been a Tolkien fan, but I would sit in my room, in my bedroom, watching these films over and over and over and over again. And I would watch like Andy Serkis be Gollum, and I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that. And I just now there's like the video of him going around on Twitter where he's doing the audiobook, and I'm just like, oh, mind blown. Like, I want to do that. So, you know, those have inspired me so much, and they to this day still inspiring me continuously. I agree. It's awesome. It's the best. Are you saying like I do? I want to be those things. I'm very much into fantasy type of stuff. Yeah, like anybody who follows me online you know this. I'm posting my elf ears and my dresses and you know, yeah, I yeah, all the fantasy things. I think more than anything, the fantasy genre and also like I'm again Scottish and Irish and that culture, you know, the whole Celtic and Gaelic culture has meant so much to me and I've really delved into that and like all of that and everything fantasy related. It's what more than anything else, I think has created who this person is. It. I mean, like I grew up with like all the '80s fantasy films, like Labyrinth and Legend and Willow and The Dark Crystal, and I grew up with like Fraggle Rock and Eureka's Castle and The Last Unicorn. And then when I got into like anime and video games, my favorites were always the things that had more fantasy in them. Like my favorite anime was Escaflowne, which the Vision of Escaflowne, which is like fantasy, and then it has like, you know, this medieval like feel to it. And yeah, that's totally me, fantasy nerd right here.
During your whole acting careers, like theater, dancing, and film, and in the booth too, have you ever had to adopt a particular accent? And if so, which one? And also, are there like any language or like accent that you would like to adopt in a performance?
So there's been a couple. I am from Texas, and my whole family has a Texas accent. I do not, and I have never had a Texas accent. I will say words really funny because that's how people around me would say words, but I don't have an accent. So I have been asked to play several characters who have like a Southern or specifically a Texas accent. Thankfully, because I grew up with it and I know what it sounds like because that was what I was surrounded by most of my life when I was in Texas. That one was particularly very easy to pick up on because I was like, okay, I got that. That one I've been asked to do quite a bit. The other would be like standard, very standard. As a performer, I feel most of us kind of learn and have to learn because especially coming from theater, I did quite a few plays where I needed to have like either a standard British or like a transatlantic accent or kind of like a fantasy British accent, and that I picked up from theater. And so there are characters like I do Stella Monroe in Rainbow High, who is British, and she's exaggerated British. I know sometimes people are like, no British person talks like that, which is true, but she's a character. She's a cartoon character, and she's very dramatic. So we play her very big, but she's posh. She's very British, so she speaks very differently than how I speak, and it's a lot of fun. So those are the two I do the most. I still, again, I do British accents for to perfect and get to do would be like a good Irish or Scottish accent because again, coming from a Scottish and Irish family, I would love to play those characters, but I want to do so genuinely and I have trouble with it. So I'm going to be working on that because if I could play a nice like Irish or Scottish character in a game or a animation, I would be very very happy.
You mentioned some times earlier about Pandora from ReZero,
Yep.
who is quite like really different and more like a darker role or like more like
Yes.
emotionless role. And
Yes.
how it was a challenge for you, but what was like the experience voicing her?
So I love Pandora. When people ask me my favorite characters from Phantasy Star Online too, I love those characters, but also Pandora. And the reason is because she is so different than what I typically play. Um, yeah, I as my personality is very bubbly. My personality is very, out there and kind of, so I voice mostly very cutesy type characters, very young characters. And so when I was cast as Pandora, it was exciting because I was going to have a chance to show a side that I haven't been able to show yet as a voice actor. And it was such an experience. It was hard because Pandora still is very young. She has that young appearance. She still sounds very cute. Actually, in on the session, and we all figured out together how this character was going to, you know, sound and how she was going to portray herself. And we all worked together and we found it. And we thought, yeah, the kind of creepy sounding, cute voice with very little emotion was very, yeah. Yeah. We were like, it works. So yeah, that was so different for me to, again, and it was hard because you're playing a character who has like, she sounds, she sounds very cute, but there's something very unsettling about her. And then on top of that, even though she sounds emotionless, there is a lot going. She has a history and a lot on with it. How to, have her come across as like cold and, again, not having emotion, but there being a driving force behind it all. If that makes sense. And again, she does these terrible things. I've cried in the booth many times because of something really happy. I cried at the end of Evangelion. The fourth film made me cry. I've cried when recording Miraculous, but I had never cried because I was playing a character who did something so terrible. And I actually was very upset in the booth recording for Pandora because what she was doing was so awful. And I, having to deal with that, but then have to genuinely play this character, like not care, was a challenge. So yeah, I love Pandora to come, and we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Let's see that.
Yeah, and I do have to say there was actually a time where I was voicing Pandora, Zoe, and Mari all in the same week. And it was so, and on one day I actually voiced Pandora and Mari on the same day. And it was so different because my scenes that I was doing for Mari was very like joyful, and she's just kind of like, whatever, and she's like heroic. And then you have Pandora doing these really awful things. And so it was so, as an actor, rewarding to go from playing like a heroic, fun, bubbly character to, okay, now you got to go be evil. So yeah, and that happens, and I had to switch it. Yeah.
Oh, speaking again of Maui, because you speak about Maui, there's like a scene. there's a scene in which she screams.
Yes.
Yes.
She screams in a lot, but I know what you mean. She lets out that really big scream. Yeah, so I do want to address, I know that people were a little disappointed because, like, the screams weren't quite what they wanted. I have to say, as a performer, I can tell you that we recorded a whole bunch of different things. And as a performer, when you're recording from home, it's not so much that you're trying to avoid disturbing the neighbors, because, believe me, our neighbors know. It's more about what you have available in the equipment. So I just wanted to put that out there. But the screams, finding the screams, that particular scream, it was listening to what Maya Sakamoto did. My biggest inspiration for any of the attack stuff with Mari was watching Maya's performance, because that's who I got to hear, because you hear it in Japanese first and you feel it in Japanese first, and then you record. And I mean, we recorded a bunch of different stuff, and we were just trying to get different emotions and everything in there. And yeah, I also have to say, screaming is a lot of fun, but it's also very hard on your voice.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
How do you then, when you have to manage screaming scenes, how do you take care of your voice even before, like after that?
Yeah, even before. So So I was lucky with Mari because once I did know, that I was voicing Mari, and all of that was the dubbed versions of the films. And I had only ever seen the first rebuild film. Okay. But I knew of the character, and I knew that the character had battle scenes. She's a pilot. Of course, she was going to have battle scenes. So I was lucky in that regard that I already knew, her being an Ava pilot, that I was probably going to have some scenes that were going to be pretty intense. So I would just baby my voice, the day before. A lot of tea and honey. Honey really helps. Nimjom, which is something voice actors love. A lot of that. I have a little personal humidifier that I like, use for my throat, and I would just really baby it the day before, so then it would be nice and strong for me to do those screams. And if I could, I would try to avoid scheduling any sessions, because never just safe if to schedule a session like the day before I was recording anything for Evangelion, I would try to do that if possible, or at least like record like after Evangelion, so I could have you know be on the best, give my best vocal performances I could.
Characters and stuff. For you, which characters could be a good role model for like an image of like a female empowerment, either like behind the like in the booth, on stage, or in this behind the screen, like on screen?
Definitely. So it's so easy to say Mari, so I'm going to say somebody else. I've already mentioned her. It would be Ulk from Phantasy Star. See, I want to say Final Fantasy because I want to be in Final Fantasy, but it would be Ulk from Phantasy Star Online 2. And started voicing her, one of my most favorite characters of all time. And a lot of that is because she kicks butt. Let me tell you, she is awesome. So the thing about Phantasy Star is that there's all these really cool characters that have like all of these really cool abilities and, stuff like that. And my character does not have those abilities. She does not have any of these like special things that, she can go and fight with and stuff like that. But she's very determined. She's very determined to get what she wants, and she has her goals, and she freaking becomes like the head honcho of everything in Phantasy Star Online too. It's so cool. She becomes like the leader. And throughout the course of the game, she's always giving these very inspirational talks, and they're very like I would feel very inspired while delivering them. I'd be saying these lines and feeling it, and then afterwards I'd feel empowered, and I'm like, oh, thanks, Ulk. Now I know that I can go and do anything too, because she's just so positive. She doesn't focus on what she doesn't have. She focuses on what she does have and how those gifts and the things that she has as this awesome space elf can help her progress forward. And she's just so cool. And she's very funny too. She has a great personality. She's always joking around, kind of like Mari. I think that's why I like them both. I like the characters that have kind of like that, kind of lighthearted side. But she gets it done, and she does it out being others. I find it extremely inspirational. And Ulk, definitely. I'm like, she's a poster elf for like inspiration and for strong women, strong elves, strong people. Yeah.
We need people like that, strong-willed and going forward. Yeah.
Exactly.
Does it ever happen to you in the booth, or like maybe during the rehearsal for like the theater, or to break a character? And what is the most likely cause?
So yeah, it happens all the time. So it's oh my gosh, it happens all the time. I find it, depending on the scene. There's sometimes when I'm doing really serious scenes where I sing, but there are times, especially with us all recording remotely, with the pandemic and everything, where there's just audio things that happen, and it's just so hard to stay in character. I was working, I won't say the project, but I was working on a project, and it was the most fun I had in a while, where we had the producers on the other, like Zoom call and stuff, listening in, and we had the director and stuff, and one of the producers, I'm trying to play this character and play it seriously, and one of the producers was having like really bad like audio feedback, and so every time he would talk, he would sound like Wally, from Wally, or he sounded like a robot, and like none of us could stay in character because it was just like I just couldn't. Every time he would like give a note or something, and I'm trying to deliver this performance, he would start talking, and it would just be like blah, blah, blah. It was all place. It ended up being fun though, and thankfully it was a character in a scene that wasn't like super serious or anything like that, so I was able to pop back into character pretty easily. But it happens all the time, and I always tell people, don't feel bad. It's good to just let go and have fun, and you are no less professional because you allow yourself to laugh or you break character for a moment. Like, you don't have to stay intense and in character. It does, allow yourself those moments because it helps.
You speaking about remote recording, do you think that in some ways it has like helped like somehow like I don't know like grow the possibilities
Yeah, I
in
mean, yeah, definitely. I peers from all over the globe and all over the world be able to have opportunities, that they didn't normally have, because the remote recording in the pandemic, unfortunately, as terrible as it was and is, because it is still going on, it gave everybody these opportunities to record from home. And if somebody in LA could record from home, why not somebody from Australia? And so it's great. And Mama Yakata, again from Bang Zoom, we were on a panel together, and she said something really great, which was it kind of opened up better like diverse casting. Like, if there's a very specific type of role you need to fill, you have more to choose from, and you can actually, fill that role and fill it correctly with the person who should be playing that. Been great. I mean, even I live in Los Angeles, which is like, one of the voiceover hubs. We have so many studios here, so I've been very lucky to record with them before the pandemic. But with the pandemic and remote recording, I've been able to record with studios all over. I've gotten to record with Funimation, which I hadn't gotten to do before, and I've gotten to record with like Okatron and all of these other studios that if we didn't have these remote setups and capabilities, who knows what would happen. So I think it's a great thing. And yeah, it's definitely opened doors for talent, and I hope that it keeps, giving everybody opportunities.
how does dubbing because I think if I was correctly you have been dubbing also like live actions no
Yes.
yes how does it differ from like animations cartoon or even like video games.
I was just gonna say, so out of every type of voiceover, I still feel the one that I do the most is live action dubbing. I do a lot of live action dubbing. A lot of it is I don't even like talk about it because I just do so much of it, and it's great. I love it. The difference is, and everybody has their own opinions. I think it's the hardest type of voiceover you can do. And if you can do live action dubbing, you can do anything. And the reason for that, and what makes it so hard to even say compared to anime, is that in animation or video game dubbing and stuff like that, you are dubbing something that's not real. You're just, you're just set up. So it's animated. Whereas with live action dubbing, you have these real people giving these real, grounded, honest performances, which is happening in animation as well. Okay, so that happens in animation. I'm not saying that there's no grounded performances, but I'm saying you're actually getting to see visually like this very grounded performance by a living, breathing actor whose mouth, see how I'm talking right now, my mouth makes so many different shapes and everything. So you're going to have to dub a performance that is matches that actor, and is still genuine to you, honest, but also match these mouth flaps, which aren't just like this. You have to try. And then different languages like Russian languages, the Russian language, whenever we do like a Russian dub, they don't really move their mouths like at all. So they'll be talking and it's very much like this, and then you're trying to deliver a thing in English, but their mouths are barely moving. So it's tricky to try to marry it all together. To I've actually have been again I've been fortunate because my first voiceover experience ever actually was having to do my own live action dubbing. I did so many like indie films and stuff like that where audio was really bad, and so they would have to bring me in and I would have to dub myself, and so I was very familiar with it. So I what I feel is when if you have film experience, it's more like being on film. You know, you play as real and as grounded and as honest and genuine as you can, to that actor, and try to do your best. You got to try to match as best as you can. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. But I love it. I think it's very underrated, live action dubbing, and for me, I think some of the most just like rewarding experiences as a voice actor have been from live action projects that I've worked on. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And it's like I always tell people, it's like with anything, the more that you do it, the easier it becomes. And it's just practice and experience. Yeah.
Speaking of performances, which one was like has the the biggest impact on you? I mean, maybe many of them, I guess, but like some of them, if it's like one of them or like some of them.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Mari. Mari has definitely had such a huge impact on me. In some ways, it also had a negative impact on me for a little bit because we talked about, the fandom and stuff. And I went in voicing this thing that I love so, so, so much. Like, I put 110% of myself into this character in this project. And to have so much, like, out outlash, and or backlash, and you know, about it almost tainted it for me for allowed myself, how I was talking about allowing yourself to feel things and moving past it. I allowed myself to feel bad when I really to have as much as it has had a positive and amazing experience for me, I had that experience as well where it was hard. Thankfully, I've had people who have really helped lift me up, and so many people, as it's so interesting, as the films have been out, I've had more and more people reach out to me and just say the most wonderful, sweetest things about Mari and how they love, my Mari, and it's very encouraging. It's very, very encouraging. And again, and we were kind of talking about people picking up on things, about like, does she like Asuka? Did you do that on purpose? It felt like that was on purpose. Is this, was this your intent? And that people can pick up on things like that through a performance, a vocal performance. It means a lot. So I'm very Mari has had the biggest impact on me just as a performer. And I learned a lot about myself as a person and how to move forward with things that may cause me to feel down and bad about myself as an actor, but also like things that made me feel good about myself as a performer and actor. So definitely Mari. I know I've talked about Mari so much, but I love her. She really is just such a. I feel like I've played so many different roles over the years, but there's always going to be a couple of characters that just will always stick out to you, and that's definitely her. Um, Another character that has had a big impact on me is I was in a play called Dummies, and I played a character called Claire. And this was written by Robert, who is a fantastic evangelist. And I had so much fun with that character. And I have to say, it's probably one of the best performances I had ever done in terms of just like my entire career. And still to this day, when people ask me, like, what is your favorite, like, play, movie, anything that you've done, and they don't know. There's not everybody knows about anime and stuff, so they'll talk about that. I will always talk about Claire. I got to be very physical with my body. It was very like I had to talk in that accent, and she just kind of carried the play like on her back with all of this weird stuff. And I still I did that play probably about 7 years ago, and I still will be like, oh yeah, Claire from Dummies, she was a blast. So yeah, those are two of them, but there really are so many. There really are many. Grown from mine, I have to mention as well because she was my first significant anime role, and as somebody who absolutely loves anime and had never like thought that I would get to be recording anime and be on something like Toonami to get to play such a sweet, cute character in Sword Art Online, which is like such a big anime. She's so special to me. Yeah.
As a performer, like also like as a dancer, because as you have mentioned, like dance is like a big part of like you and yourself and your life. We could like almost say that you almost dance in life in some ways. What do you wish to transmit, to like translate and communicate through like your dance and through your performances?
So especially when it comes to my dance performances, they're very weird. And purposely so. I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day about I like to make people think and to make people feel uncomfortable. And by that I mean I want people to really be honest with themselves. So when I create something, whether it's dance or if I get to play a really interesting character through voiceover or film and stuff, I want to give people those moments of where they stop and go, what am I feeling listening this person? Because I think when you're able to crack that, you know, with the audience, and because it can be kind of hard, making people uncomfortable. That I don't want anybody to be like not feel safe or anything. When I say uncomfortable, I want them to again be honest with themselves. Why is this particular thing bothering you? Like, I do a lot, again, really weird dance things where it's like very suggestive and sensual and sexual in a way, but it's also very ugly and weird and like demented, and people like don't know how they feel about it. And it's like, why do you feel that way? Why does this bother you? Like, why is something that looks like this bothering you? I don't know if this is making sense. It's just one of those things where I want kind of, I don't like to say pushing the boundaries because sometimes that can be a negative thing, but kind of pushing to get people to again be open about themselves and just kind of like think beyond the box. Like, I as a performer, I would rather have somebody be unhappy and like really weirded out or not like my performance, I honestly would, than somebody just not have an opinion about it at all. If I as a performer can't get anybody, like if they don't feel anything, from my performance, whether it's dance, theater, film, voiceover, if they don't feel anything, that to me, I don't feel like I accomplished much. I people like those. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. But it's like a big thing. I really like to kind of like people will watch my dance videos and be like, "What? What? I don't know how I feel about this." And I'm like, "Good. Really think about it. Watch it again and think about it." Yeah, it's really
I love
weird.
this.
Yeah.
Like in some ways, performer are like a storyteller, as you have said that maybe you, or maybe personally you wish like to give yourself, to share yourself to the audience, or like you see characters, you relate to characters, or like you want people maybe not to, like to question what you are showing,
Yes.
and like it's some way it's like storytelling, like as a whole. But what kind of stories would you like to leave behind you for your story?
Yes, no, it's clear. I I want people to feel, I was just talking about I want people to be honest and to think. But at the end of the day, as a performer and an artist, when it comes to me, I want people to feel, I want to be relatable. I want, I'm a very open and very honest person. Sometimes to the point where, I say things or share things and people are like, maybe you shouldn't share that. That's not really professional or, something like that. And to me, it's like, I'm not sharing this for you then. This is for all of the other people who are in the same place that I am and who want me to see me focused about it, because we as people struggle. And as performers and actors and artists, we struggle. We have ups and downs. And I find it very important that we all have, things that we can relate to and people that we can relate to. So I want to also give performances that people can look at and go, yes, I know where that character's coming from, and I can feel it because I'm going through that too. It's it's something that, again, when I talk about like me watching this stuff when I was having a hard time as a teenager, when I say I didn't have friends, I was very isolated for most of my teenage years because my family had moved. I had a dream visit home, go home. I schooled myself. I didn't have friends. I wasn't allowed to hang out with people. And so for me, I was finding performances through video games, anime, film, these things that I was watching, and I would connect to certain characters, because of the performance. And I want to be able to give that to people too. I want them to be able to relate to whatever it is that I am giving. I just think that it's very rewarding. It means, again, like when I was talking about like sharing things and just as a performer sharing things and wanting people to look at me and be like, oh, I understand, I get where that performer is coming from. It's just, yeah, I think we all need that. And that's what I want. I wanted people to be able to, and so be able to see themselves in, and also feel safe, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, yes.
And
Well,
it means a lot to me too. I just really want, we all come from different walks of life, and I want people to feel inspired and people to know that, like, no matter where they are right now in their lives, that they can, things are possible. It may be hard, but it's possible. Yeah.
well, that's the end of my questions and my interview. Thank you so much.
That was it. Oh my gosh. That was so cute. No, I really loved all your questions. I know I talk a lot.